The girl didn't flinch when the bottle shattered near her feet. She just lifted her chin the way the bikers taught her. Quiet, steady, unbreakable. Born deaf, raised in a Hell's Angels clubhouse, she read danger in vibrations instead of sound. But none of the men circling her saw the small homeless boy stepping forward, barefoot on cold pavement, ready to do something that would shake every biker watching. Before we start the story, tell us wherever you're watching from, tell us in the comments, what touched you most in this story? They found her at 3 days old, wrapped in a grocery store blanket, left on the back step of the Angels' old repair garage on North Blake Road. No note, no name, just a newborn who didn't cry. The club argued for hours that night, voices low, pacing across oil-stained concrete. Some wanted to call the sheriff. Others thought it was a setup, a trap, something meant to pull them into a mess they didn't need. But then she opened her eyes, and everything stopped. She didn't react to the clatter of tools being dropped or the roar of an engine warming outside. She only watched faces, studying mouths, tracking breath. "She ain't hearing a damn thing," old Ray muttered, kneeling beside her. Not a whimper. By morning, they had her a name, June. A soft name that felt wrong in a place of steel, gasoline, and men who lived by unspoken rules. But she grew into it. Crawled the clubhouse floors, tugged on leather vests, clapped silently at the rumble she could feel in the boards. The men took shifts teaching her signs, writing notes on napkins, guiding her hands through language they barely knew. June wasn't their blood. She became their heartbeat. June learned the world through vibration, engines, doors, footsteps. The clubhouse shook every time someone laughed too hard or slammed a boot against the stairs, and she felt every ounce of it. The men adjusted, slowly, awkwardly. They cushioned doors, warned each other with hand signals before starting bikes, even practiced signing in the mirrors of the bar so they wouldn't embarrass themselves in front of her. By 6, she was reading lips better than most adults. She could catch jokes before they were finished, call out lies with a raised eyebrow, and sense tension before a single word surfaced. The Angels didn't treat her like porcelain. They treated her like a sister they had to get right, a promise they refused to break. But she had one habit that worried them: the constant tilt of her head to the left, fingers pressing behind her ear. She never complained, never showed pain, but that small gesture followed her everywhere. They took her to doctors, cheap clinics, expensive specialists, even a university program up in Portland. Same answer every time. Nothing physically wrong, possibly congenital deafness. They stopped trying to fix her, they just tried to protect her. Until the day a stranger noticed what none of them had. The park wasn't part of the plan. Parks were for families who didn't patch their jackets or carry old scars under denim. But June liked the swings, the slow chain rattle she could feel through her palms. So once a month, early morning before crowds appeared, the men took her. 3 bikes in formation, June sandwiched between them on the back of Brick's Harley, holding tight to his vest. That morning, the air was cold enough to sting. Frost still hugged the grass. She hopped off the bike and jogged toward the swings, boots thudding softly. A few joggers passed, a dog walker, an old man with a cane. Normal, quiet, safe. At least it looked that way. Brick and Ray sat on a bench nearby, while Cutter stood watch under a maple tree. They didn't hover, they just gave her a bubble no one dared step into. June pumped her legs, smiling as each lift sent a tremor through the chain into her bones. That's when she saw him. A boy, thin, barefoot, hoodie 2 sizes too big, hands shoved deep into the pockets. He wasn't staring at the bikers. He was staring at June's ear with a look she'd never seen before. He approached slowly, like someone used to getting chased off. June didn't move away. She watched his lips, waiting for words. Instead, he lifted one hand, palm up, asking permission in a language no one taught him. Brick stepped forward immediately, boots grinding gravel. "Back up, kid." The boy froze, eyes flicking to the man's vest, then back to June. He shook his head, mouthing silently, "Not gonna hurt." June raised her own hand, signing wait. Brick stopped, jaw tight, letting her decide. The boy stepped closer, close enough for her to see dirt under his nails. He pointed to her ear, then tapped his own, grimacing like he recognized something familiar. June's fingers hovered over her ear. That tilt, that pressure, he mimicked it perfectly. She nodded. The boy leaned in, careful, pausing any time Brick shifted. He braced his thumb near her jawline and looked into the ear canal with the focus of someone who'd done this before, someone desperate to help. June stayed still. Brick held his breath. Cutter's hand sat on his knife. The boy whispered one word June couldn't hear, but she understood from his mouth. Blockage. He didn't ask for tools. He didn't ask for help. He simply reached into his pocket and pulled out a tiny plastic straw from a fast food cup, cut unevenly at the end. Improvised. Fragile. Useless looking. Yet he checked June's face again, making sure she trusted him. She gave the smallest nod. He angled the straw, placing it just at the edge of her canal, not deep, not risky, just enough to hook something the doctors had missed. Brick swore under his breath. Ray stepped forward. June lifted a hand, stopping them both. Then the boy twisted his wrist slightly. A soft pop. June jerked, eyes wide. Something dark and hardened slid out into the straw, compact, old, dense like dried wax compressed for years. The boy tapped it onto his palm. Showed her. She blinked, confused, pressing both hands to her ears like she felt the world shift. Cutter muttered, "What the hell?" But the boy wasn't finished. He motioned for her to wait, tilted her head gently, and checked deeper. No tools, no force, just patience. Another twist, another release. June gasped in silence, clutching the chain of the swing. She didn't hear sound. But for the first time in her life, she felt something new. Clarity. June touched her ear again, almost afraid the new sensation might disappear. The morning air felt sharper, cleaner, as if someone had wiped fog from a window inside her head. She couldn't hear footsteps or voices, not yet, but something long blocked had finally opened. She looked at the boy, her eyes asking 100 questions he didn't try to answer. Brick approached first. "Kid, where'd you learn that?" His voice stayed low, controlled. But June could read the tension in his shoulders, the guarded gratitude he wasn't ready to admit. The boy shrugged, stepping back like he expected to be pushed away now that he'd helped. He kept his eyes on the ground, shifting his weight like an animal ready to bolt. June stepped in front of him and signed thank you. He didn't understand the sign, but he understood the expression. Ray knelt beside them, scanning the boy, bare feet cut from asphalt, hoodie torn at one sleeve, a bruise fading under his jaw. "You hungry?" he asked. The boy hesitated. June caught it first, fear, not pride, fear of taking too much. Fear of being seen. Brick exhaled sharply. "Kid, it's a question, not a threat." The boy whispered, lips forming, "A little." They didn't take him straight to the clubhouse. Even the softest version of that place was too loud, too overwhelming, too dangerous for someone who didn't know them. Instead, they brought him to a diner 2 blocks from the park, a quiet corner booth everyone avoided when bikers walked in. As they entered, conversations stalled. People stared, some politely, some not. June tapped her fingers against the table, feeling the hum of the building. The boy sat beside her, shoulders tight, ready to run if anyone raised their voice. A waitress approached, nervously twisting her pen. Brick gave a nod, calm but unmistakable. 3 hot breakfasts, extra toast, and a kid's plate whatever's warm. The boy shook his head quickly. "I can't pay." Ray slid a menu toward him. "Didn't ask you to." June nudged his elbow gently. He flinched, then relaxed when he saw her smile. She studied his face, reading the small hesitations, the way he avoided eye contact, how he scanned exits, how he covered his hands like hiding evidence of struggle. Cutter leaned across the table. "Got a name." The boy hesitated, lips tightening before forming 2 careful syllables. "Eli." June repeated it in sign, slow and deliberate. It made him smile, barely. Eli ate like someone afraid the plate might vanish if he looked away. Tiny bites at first, then faster, until Brick slid another plate in front of him without comment. June watched closely, studying every movement. She gently nudged a napkin toward him when syrup smeared across his cheek. He froze at the gesture, then wiped it slowly, almost embarrassed. Ray cleared his throat. "Were you staying, Eli?" Eli stared at the food. "Around." Brick tried again. "Family nearby." A tiny shake of the head. Cutter leaned back, crossing his arms. "Anyone looking for you?" Another shake. June tapped the table twice to get his attention, then pointed to herself and signed home. She wasn't asking. She was offering. Eli understood enough to look terrified. He pushed the plate away, backing out of the booth. I can't go with bikers. People say stuff." Brick swore under his breath. "People say stuff about us, no matter what we do." Ray added, voice gentler, "You're not safe out there alone." Eli swallowed hard. "I'm not safe anywhere." June stood, walked around the table, and took his hand with a firmness that left no room for argument. Eli didn't pull away. The cold hit them hard when they stepped back outside. Clouds had rolled in, muting the early sun. Eli hugged himself as if bracing for impact. The bikes idled nearby, their engines thumping low. June felt the vibration instantly and pressed his hand to the tank of Brick's Harley. He flinched at the contact, then blinked in surprise as the rumble steadied under his palm. "That's how she listens," Brick said quietly. "Through bones, not ears." June nodded proudly. Eli stared at her with something like awe, someone who learned the world differently, who survived without the senses most people took for granted. Ray looked at the boy's bare feet. "You can't ride like that." Eli shrugged. "I walk everywhere." Cutter opened his saddlebag, pulled out thick wool socks and an old pair of boots. "Put 'em on." Eli didn't move. June crouched beside him, fingers brushing the torn hem of his hoodie. She pointed to her boots, then to the ones Cutter held. Same, meant they were equals in this moment. Slowly, Eli slipped the socks on. The boots followed, too big but warm. Brick patted the rear seat. "Hop on, kid. Nobody's leaving you behind today." Eli hesitated only once, then climbed on. They rode slow, a protective triangle around Brick's bike. June sat in front of Eli so he could grip the back of her jacket instead of clinging to strangers. Every pothole, every shift of the wind, she felt his movements. Hesitation melting into trust, fear loosening its grip. The ride to the clubhouse was short, but for Eli it might as well have been another world. The wooden structure sat behind an old scrapyard, paint faded, windows barred not for danger but habit. A massive mural of wings stretched across the front wall, the angel's emblem tucked between them like a promise. June hopped off first, signing welcome with both hands. Eli managed a small grin, lips forming. "This is big." Ray pushed open the door. "Don't touch the pool table unless you want 10 grown men crying." Inside, noise pulsed through the floorboards. Laughter, chairs scraping, the clank of tools deeper inside the garage. June felt all of it, grounding herself. She reached for Eli's wrist, guiding him in. The room fell silent. Dozens of patched members turned toward them, faces rugged, eyes sharp, presence heavy. Eli froze. Brick stepped beside him and said one thing, voice firm, echoing across the room. "He's with us." The tension broke first in the form of a single nod from Tank, the oldest member in the room. He leaned forward in his chair, setting aside a wrench stained with grease. "Kid looks cold," he muttered. That was all it took. Conversations restarted, boots shuffled, and the clubhouse returned to its familiar rumble, only now the noise had a new center. Eli stood rigid, unsure where to put his hands, but June tugged him gently toward the long wooden table. "Sit," Cutter said, pulling out a chair with exaggerated politeness. "Nobody bites. Except maybe Lou, but he's missing teeth, so you're safe." A few men chuckled. Eli almost smiled. June watched him carefully, reading every flicker of uncertainty. She signed safe to him, her movements slow and deliberate. He didn't fully understand the sign, but he understood the intent. Ray dropped a folded club jacket onto the table. "This ain't yours," he said, "but you can wear it while you're here. Keeps people from asking stupid questions." Eli touched the leather with hesitant fingers, tracing the stitched wings. "You don't even know me." Brick answered from across the room, voice low but certain. "We know enough." And June nodded, sealing it. In the hours that followed, the clubhouse took on an unusual softness. Men who normally spoke in grunts and half-sentences found themselves explaining things to Eli. How to tell which tools belonged to who, why certain helmets had stickers, how to keep clear of the welding corner if he didn't want eyebrows singed off. June stayed close, watching him absorb everything with that sharpened instinct of a child who'd had to grow up too fast. She pointed out safe places, the couch near the back window where she read, the quiet hallway coated in old posters, the stairs she wasn't allowed to climb because grown-up messes lived up there. Eli followed her lead like he'd been waiting his whole life for someone his age to show him a map. When one of the men accidentally knocked over a crate of chains, the clatter vibrated through the floorboards. Eli froze, flinched, but June stepped behind him and placed her hand on his back, steadying his breath the way they steadied hers during thunderstorms. Tank noticed. "So the girl who can't hear," he said quietly to Ray, "feels the world better than most of us." Ray nodded, "And she's teaching that boy faster than we can." By late afternoon, Eli stopped hovering near doors. He drifted instead toward June's corner, her small sanctuary beside the old jukebox that hadn't worked in years. She sat cross-legged on the rug, spreading out sheets of paper and markers. Drawing was how she voiced things she couldn't sign yet. She handed him a blank page. He hesitated. "I'm not good at this." June shrugged, tapping her chest, then making a clumsy circle on the page. Not good didn't matter. Just draw. Eli uncapped a marker and began sketching quick lines, crooked rooftops, smoke clouds, a small boy standing alone between two buildings. June studied it carefully, then drew beside him. A girl with a ponytail standing close to the boy, no words between them, just proximity. Eli swallowed hard. Brick walked by, slowing when he saw the drawings but not commenting. He simply placed a fresh plate of fries on the rug between them and kept moving. Eli picked one up slowly. "Why are you all helping me?" June paused. She pointed at him, pointed at herself, then tapped the floorboard twice, her gesture for connection. Same vibrations, same quiet. Eli lowered his head, whispering, "No one else ever claimed me before." June reached over and pushed the fries closer. Evening crept in, and the clubhouse lights warmed the room in amber. The men didn't hold a meeting, not officially. But a silent one formed anyway, bodies gathering near the bar in a loose circle while June and Eli worked on another drawing. Brick leaned in. "Kid can stay the night, it's freezing out there." Tank grunted, "And tomorrow." Ray crossed his arms, "We figure it out." Cutter tapped the counter. "Can't parade a homeless boy around without checking his story. Someone might be looking for him." But Brick shook his head. "He's not lying, you can see it, and if someone's looking for him, they didn't look hard enough." No one disagreed. Night settled fully, and the clubhouse quieted to low murmurs and the hum of distant engines. Someone set out blankets on the couch. Someone else brought a bowl of warm water so Eli could wash his feet. He stared at all of it like he didn't know how to accept kindness without fearing the cost. June motioned him to sit. She dipped a cloth into the water and gently cleaned the cuts along his ankles. Eli jerked back at first, unused to tenderness, but she steadied him with a hand on his knee. She signed okay, he nodded. Ray watched from the doorway, arms folded. "Kid's tougher than he looks." Brick answered quietly, "Tough ain't the same as safe." When June finished washing his feet, she pointed to the couch. Eli hesitated. "I don't want to take your spot." June shook her head and pointed to her own room, a tiny converted storage space with posters and glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. She would sleep there. He would sleep on the couch. "Fair." Eli lay down, pulling the blanket up to his chin. For the first time in years, warmth wrapped him without fear. Across the room, June smiled. He belonged here now. Eli woke before sunrise, heart pounding, unsure at first where he was. The leather scent, the low creak of floorboards, the soft vibration of someone starting coffee in the kitchen, it all came back slowly. He sat up, clutching the blanket, listening for danger the way he'd learned to survive. But instead, he saw June curled in a chair nearby, asleep with her knees tucked under her chin, head tilted against the wall. She'd fallen asleep watching over him. Ray walked in, paused when he saw Eli awake, then poured 2 cups of hot chocolate instead of coffee. "Morning," he said, sliding a cup toward him. "Club rule, kids don't start their day with caffeine." Eli stared. "I'm not a club kid." Ray sat across from him. June wasn't either, until she was. Eli looked over at her sleeping form, fragile yet grounded like a tree that had survived too many storms. "She's different," he murmured. Ray nodded. "So are you." Eli swallowed hard. "What happens now?" Ray didn't answer immediately. He let the boy sit with the warmth in his hands. "We give you food, warmth, rest. After that, we figure out the truth, together." Eli didn't flinch that time. Later that morning, Brick called an informal check-in in the garage. The men gathered around an old workbench, tools scattered among coffee cups. Eli stood near June, hands in his pockets, prepared to be told he had to leave. Brick lifted a folded paper Ray had found in Eli's hoodie during laundry, crumpled, water-stained, covered in shaky handwriting. "Yours?" Brick asked. Eli nodded, cheeks flushing. It wasn't a note from a parent. It wasn't an address. It wasn't a secret map. It was a list, tiny, desperate sentences: find food, stay warm, be invisible, don't trust men. Don't trust loud voices, don't fall asleep near alleys, don't need anyone. Tank exhaled slowly. Cutter rubbed his forehead. Ray folded the paper again like it was something fragile. Brick looked at Eli. "Who told you not to trust men?" Eli hesitated. "No one had to, I learned." June reached for his sleeve, her touch breaking the weight of the confession. Eli didn't pull away. Brick lowered his voice. "Kid, you're here now, nobody's hitting you, nobody's ditching you. Nobody's using you." Eli snorted quietly. "People always say that." Brick leaned in, eyes steady. "We don't say what we won't do." For the first time, Eli believed a piece of it. News of Eli spread quietly through the club's extended circle. Other charters, affiliated riders, the biker families who flowed in and out of the garage like a second bloodstream. But they didn't treat Eli like a case to solve. They treated him like a kid who needed meals and shoes and someone to sit beside him while he learned the clubhouse rhythms. June took on that job without being assigned. She taught him simple signs: hungry, tired, yes, no, friend. Eli tried each motion clumsily, frustrated when his fingers wouldn't cooperate. June never got impatient. She just repeated the motion until he mirrored it. Brick watched them from across the room. "She's calmer with him," he said to Ray. "No," Ray corrected. "She's understood by him." But the peace didn't last the whole day. Just before dusk, a patrol car rolled slowly down the gravel road toward the scrapyard entrance. The Angels didn't panic, they never did, but every back straightened, every voice dropped. The club didn't like surprises. Eli stiffened, eyes glued to the flashing lights on the cruiser's roof. June stepped closer, her presence quiet and grounding. Brick muttered, "Let's find out who they're here for." And who they were. Sheriff Nolan stepped out, a man with a limp, a gray beard, and a history with the Angels that went back decades. Respect, not conflict. He nodded to Brick. "Morning. Not here for trouble." Brick folded his arms. "Then state your business." Nolan looked around, spotting Eli half hidden behind June. Something softened in his expression. "Got a call early this morning. Someone saw a barefoot kid near 4th Street. Figured he might be in danger." Cutter muttered, "He was." Nolan nodded. "Did the kid leave home, run away?" Eli took a breath. "I don't have a home." It wasn't dramatic, just truth spoken flatly enough to silence the room. Nolan studied him carefully. "Any living family?" Eli shook his head. "Anyone filed a missing child report." Another shake, Nolan sighed. "I can take him in, temporary shelter. Food, bed, paperwork," but he hesitated, glancing at June's hand clasped around Eli's sleeve. "State homes aren't always gentle." Brick's jaw tightened. "We know." Nolan lowered his voice. "If he stays here, you boys take responsibility." Tank stepped forward. "We already did." Nolan met Eli's eyes. "It's your choice, son." Eli looked at June, her steady presence, her silent understanding, and whispered, "I want to stay." The sheriff filled out the minimal paperwork on the hood of his cruiser. No dramatic speeches. No legal threats. Just a quiet agreement between men who understood that sometimes the safest place for a child wasn't the system, but the people who refused to abandon him. When Nolan left, gravel crunching under the tires, the clubhouse exhaled as one. June stepped in front of Eli, tapping her fists together, a sign she used rarely but with certainty. "Family." Eli inhaled sharply, eyes stinging. "I've never had one." June shook her head and corrected